Hello there. Welcome once again to Living on Purpose. My name is Fola Daniel Adelisi, also known as Fola Daniel Speaks. Today, I want to talk to you about practical reinvention. Practical reinvention. One of the most important things you can do with your life when you get to a phase and it looks like you're stuck is to find a way to reinvent yourself. If you do not find a way to reinvent yourself, then you're going to come to the end of your life speedily. But if you find a way to reinvent yourself, you will become a better person. As I'm speaking about this, there are two animals coming vividly to mind. The first I know about is a snake. Most times, snakes will shed their skins to become better. I don't know why, but from time to time, in order to live well, they will shed their skins. But another one, which is better that I know about, is the eagle. I was told that when eagles get to maybe the age of 40, their beaks would have become strong and weak, and they would take, maybe call it a break, go into a far mountain. And when they go into that mountain, they would remain there and shed off some weight, pull up some feathers, hit their beaks on mountains, and keep doing it until they break off the beak, the old beak. After a while, they will have a new one and their strength will be renewed. If the eagles do that, they will be able to live, according to some reports, for maybe another 30 years from the time that they actually went into that retreat or renewal process to break off the old beak and to shed some of their feathers. You need to understand that even as human beings, that's one of the things we should do. You need to find a way to reinvent yourself. How do you reinvent yourself? If you're going to a career right now, one of the questions you should ask yourself is, what is the future of this career? If you're actually getting out of a career right now, another question you should ask yourself is, how do I transition into another career? When you look at the economic realities in your country, the major question you should be asking yourself is, what is going to happen to my industry and what can I do as a result of what is likely to happen to my industry? Another thing that you should also look into is the possible disruption of the internet and artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is going to disrupt a lot of industries. So it's not going to directly take your job away, as some people are projecting. But as a result of the disruption, people will see that they can do certain things better. And when they see that they can do certain things better, those who have been doing some of those things will then become redundant. If you reinvent yourself before that redundancy happens, you will remain relevant. But if you choose not to reinvent yourself before the redundancy happens, then you will be caught off guard and you would have to lose your job. So the question is, how do you go through a practical reinvention? One major thing you must constantly do to undergo a practical reinvention is to always ask yourself, what does the future hold? That's the number one question. The number two question is, what is the economic reality in the country where I live? And what is the outlook for the next few years? There are some organizations who have the capacity, they have the knowledge, they have the data to create outlook, to create forecasts for the new year, for the upcoming year, or maybe for the next 5 to 10 years. Look at that forecast and ask yourself, how do I fit into these projections? How can I go and wait for people in the future by building a skill set that doesn't seem relevant yet, but everybody is going to need in the future? That's one way to reinvent yourself. Then you should ask yourself, where is the world going to? In which direction is the world headed? That's the third question you should ask yourself. Then build a skill set in line with the direction that the entire world is headed. When you build a skill set in that direction, then you would definitely remain relevant. Today, everybody is talking about social media and artificial intelligence. Are you relevant in those two places? If you're relevant in social media these days, it's not enough. What about artificial intelligence? Years ago, there were some advertisers, they were always simply focused on just advertising on radio and on television or advertising in newspapers. And that is still working to an extent. But the bigger cash flow, the bigger bucket is with social media advertising. People are starting off companies and they're spending so much just to be known within a few days and a few weeks on social media. What can you do in that place? The people who reinvented themselves are the ones who are now relevant in that space. I remember years ago when the big people in corporate organizations were the typists all over the offices. Every boss, every executive had a typist that was attending to them. The person was a typist and at the same time a secretary. After a while, organizations, for example, in Nigeria, began to buy computers. And as they began to buy computers, those typists became redundant. The only set of people that stayed in that organization, or the people that the organization did not sack, were people who learned how to use a computer and now started typing and creating documents, storing documents for their bosses instead of using typewriters. Before, only a few people could use the typewriters. But as soon as the typewriters became irrelevant, the people who also could use them became irrelevant. A few of them migrated, they learned new skills, learned how to use computers, and they stayed on for several years. But those who didn't were immediately moved out of the organization. So, practical reinvention is simply about learning new skill sets that keep you relevant in your field. Practical reinvention is about learning new skill set that keep you relevant in your field. So if it looks like physically you're becoming irrelevant, what new skill set can you learn? What machine, what tool, what is the in thing right now that you can take on to remain relevant? Remember, after a while, no matter what you're doing, if you don't reinvent, you will become irrelevant. If you don't reinvent, you will become irrelevant. So make sure that you do a practical reinvention today, or at least begin the process. Thank you. Please head on now to www.youtube.com/Fola Daniel Speaks. Thank you.